these are two different ways to experience the communication in your life. And don't let this get too complicated, because in any given moment, you may be thriving in one or both of these strategies.
Oh, yeah.
And I think a lot of people get frustrated because they just don't understand. They don't know how to talk about this.
Right.
So I see people get frustrated with a partner because they're not reading cues. Yeah, I used to get frustrated with you because you weren't reading cues. And then I realized, you can't. So I just started defaulting to almost all low context communication for you, even though you hadn't asked for it.
I use high context tools to ask for low context communication. Yeah.
But also you have done the reverse for me. I love low context communication unless I am dysregulated and caught by one of my child parts, right? If I am caught by a child part and I am in a part and I am basically 3 years old right now, nope. That part of me wants you to figure out what it is I need, wrap me up like a burrito in a blanket, bring me a snicky snack, right? Like that's, and she doesn't want to have to ask for it. Now, you are not required to do that, but you have learned how to read those cues. Welcome to Playing with Fire, the podcast for people who are ready to custom build their love.
We're talking about non-monogamy, however you design it, as an individuation opportunity.
Want to leave the default and make your life spectacularly you? You're in the right place.
Hi, Joli.
Hey.
Let's talk today about communication. Let's talk about...
the thing I never talk about?
No. I mean, does anybody ever talk about communication?
No. I was just thinking, like,
about
non-monogamy relationships. Mm-hmm. It's all about communication.
It's all about communication.
I mean, it is. And also, I tend not to talk about communication because I think we just glop too much together under that one word.
I agree.
So yes, let's talk about it, but can we get specific?
Let's get specific, exactly. Let's talk about some styles of communication.
Okay.
Low context communication and high context communication.
Okay. Yeah, we might need to touch on some other stuff too along the way. We'll see. Because there's a lot of other things that touch that.
Of course there are.
Yeah, sure. So I love this framework, and I want to say right off the bat. So the high context, low context communication framework comes from Edward Hall, I think the late 50s. It's an anthropological theory, right? It's talking about the different communication styles and how he was categorizing them. And so there are critiques of this from the perspective of like using the concept of high context and low context communication. It could be quite stereotyping, and it could be oversimplifying. However, I think applying this particular categorization to the way that any two individuals communicate or a polycule communicates, that can sometimes be really, really helpful.
Yeah, we're not going to be talking about any sociological level issues around this communication. This is just person to person stuff.
Yeah.
And while I find it a useful model, it has all the problems that all psychological and, interpersonal models have. It's just a model on something very complex.
Something complex, exactly. And it was also talked about, there was a message board, oh God, probably like 15 or more years ago.
Well, if you're using the phrase message board,
I know,
going back a ways.
Dating myself. Somebody picked this concept up and they talked about it as ask cultures versus guess cultures. And that, again, it falls into it can have the same criticisms of it can be overly simplifying and stereotyping, and that can lead us away from better communication. However, I have seen a lot of people have some real big aha moments for themselves about like, oh, that's why we can't seem to actually achieve this thing, this amorphous, huge thing called communication, because we've got this thing in the way, and the thing that's in the way is when it boils right down to it, the way that we prefer or successfully manage to exist in
Mhm.
shared space with someone that we're trying to accomplish tasks with. So high context versus low context. Shall we define the terms really
We
clearly?
certainly shall, yes.
Okay. High context communication relies really heavily on implicit messages, nonverbal cues. High context means I read the context, I understand the context we are both experiencing right
Mhm.
now, and I can read between the lines. It relies on a lot of shared knowledge. So, high context communication, even people who even people who are low context communicators, um, over the course of a long relationship, will often have more and more high context communication because we start to develop that sort of unspoken language.
Yeah.
So siblings often have like, oh, yep, we've got that all that high context capacity. So the more you know someone, the more you may be able to operate in high context communication. But also, some of us were trained to. Some of us were brought up in high
Yep.
context households. This is where, yeah, you were expected to be able to just read the room and understand what was going on and understand what it was okay to ask for, what it was not. You were supposed to understand what needed to be done and what was appropriate. A
Right.
low
And
context. So go ahead. Sorry.
well, I was going to say, I want to say at this point that I find them to be strategies. Like, I am not a high context person. I am somebody who tends to habitually use high context communication. But like you said, it's not just because I default to one of them, it doesn't mean that I don't know how to do the other one.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
I agree. So, low context communication is all about being clear and direct and offering explicit messaging, like clear statements. So, everything's spelled out, less room for interpretation. Now, that said, I definitely tend to use more low context
Hmm.
communication strategies. I mean, I am the one who at the beginning of every episode is like, let's define our terms.
Right.
So I use that. However, I'm also interpreting all the time. And the idea that we're not interpreting and offering our own interpretations all the time is honestly laughable. So the idea that there are people who are just like, this is low context and I'm explicit and you're not explicit, it's always more nuanced than that.
What I find what strikes me about that is all words are made up.
All words are made up
Like the
and all
words
meanings
themselves
attached
are
to
a
them.
context, that we have agreed on, except not perfectly.
Yeah, and every
Yeah.
word, every phrase we're using has a bunch of connotation and denotation attached to it.
Yep.
And when we're talking about negotiated relationships where we're trying to consistently make more and more of what we're doing clear and so that we can consent with the people we're relating to, we tend to at the very least need to move through a period of low context communication, right? So this is why people will sometimes say, I'm really uncomfortable writing down my agreements. I like to just be in a conversation. I want my partner to just know me. I get that. And if we're shifting the context and now we're like, let's say we're moving from monogamy to polyamory, well, as the context shifts, we don't have that same implicit understanding.
Yep.
We don't
Right.
actually, we don't know that the other person knows what we mean. So I find that we need to use some low context communication strategies in order to do this well, in order to make this transition. It's not just about agreements, it's also about things like pre-care and aftercare. How do you want to be cared for before we undertake a new exploration and after? Those things, you understand how I want to be cared for before and after I go to a birthday party.
Hmm.
You didn't always, but
Nope.
we started relating intimately. You went to a few parties with me. You started realizing, oh, that's a really triggery situation for me. We talked about that and we developed you developed an understanding of that. And so it shifted. We went through some time where we talked about it a lot. I made really clear the kind of care I wanted around birthday parties. And then we kind of put that into the high context communication box where
Right.
we don't need to talk about that because but shift that. All of a sudden, now we shift context. Let's imagine that this was originally in the context of a monogamous marriage, and then we shift to non monogamous marriage. And all of a sudden, now I'm talking about, okay, now I'm going to a birthday party of a metamor. Oh, does that feel the same? I don't
Mhm.
know.
Yeah.
Or perhaps we're talking about, instead of just, okay, the pre-care and aftercare that I need for going out to dinner, maybe that felt really easeful, but now it's going out to dinner while I know you're out on a date. Maybe things feel shifted.
Right.
So I like that you talked about them being strategies. I think that when we think about high context or low context as strategies of ways of doing this, it opens us up to the idea that anybody could employ either of these
Yep.
strategies. And we can get better at both of them to a
Yes.
degree,
Yep.
but some people struggle with either or both of them.
Hmm. Yeah. And I have a whole bunch of theories about these two things, but I won't bother us all with them about now. But the use of these strategies in specific instances is such a personal thing. Like
Yeah,
it feels a way, like you were saying. I was clearly raised in a household that was very high context.
yeah,
I was expected to understand a bunch of things that I didn't, that before I spoke, I was supposed to understand a lot about what was going on. I never actually got very good at it, which
yeah.
is interesting. Like, because I hear other people, they're like, yeah, I was raised that way and I just nail it.
Yeah.
I never did.
And
So this,
I was raised in a low context environment where we were expected to ask for everything, even if it was something that we could have every say. Like, I was expected to ask for milk, even though there was milk on the table every single night. I was expected to ask for my glass to be filled, not to just
Mhm.
assume. We were supposed to say everything out loud. Um, and yet, because it was also a pretty rough household, I'm also hypervigilant and I'm pretty darn good at doing
Right.
high context communication
Yeah.
because I learned how to read people in order to feel safe. So
So
it's
this is
not
very
simple.
complex. Yeah. There's a lot of moving parts here.
But it's not, but I don't think it's complex once we just nail down the idea that these are two different ways to experience the communication in your life. And don't let this get too complicated, because
Okay.
in any
Yeah.
given moment you may be thriving in one or both of these strategies.
Oh, yeah.
And I think a lot of people get frustrated because they just don't understand. They don't know how to talk about this.
Right.
So I see people get frustrated with a partner because they're not reading cues. Now, I used to get frustrated with you because you weren't reading cues. And
Yep.
then I realized, oh, you can't. So I just started defaulting to almost all low context communication for you, even though you hadn't asked for it. You
I use high
I
context
used high
tools to ask for low context communication. Yeah.
I but also you have done the reverse for me. I love low context communication unless I am dysregulated
Yep.
and caught by one of my parts, right? If I am caught by a child part and I am in a part and I am basically 3 years old right now. Nope. That part of me wants you to figure out what it is I need,
Yeah.
wrap me up like a burrito in a blanket, bring me a snicky snack, right? Like that's,
Yep.
and she doesn't want to have to ask for it. Now, you
Right.
are not required to do that, but you have learned how to read those cues. In fact, just the other day, you did something. We were standing in my office. Well, no, I was sitting in my office chair. You were standing, and you went to leave the room, and then you came back and you were rubbing my shoulders. And I was like, "Oh, that's really nice. How did you know I wanted my shoulders rubbed?" And you
That's right.
said, "Do you wanna know how I knew?" And I said, "Yeah." And you said, "You made your touch me noise." I had no conscious awareness that I had made any noise at all, but I had done something, and you
Yep.
had read the room.
Yep.
And, oh my god, of course that felt amazing.
Yeah.
That felt amazing, but you couldn't have done that 15 years
No,
ago.
I could not.
You didn't know that
I had to
cue.
build all kinds of skills.
Well,
Yeah.
and you didn't
And
have
to
to.
just learn you.
Right,
No, I didn't have to. In order to engage with you in that way,
it's
I
one of
had
the
skills to
ways.
learn.
Yeah, I mean, but that's also like saying, I mean, you don't have to learn how to work everything. You don't have to learn how to do everything.
That's right.
It's one of the things that I love about our relationship is, oh, that thing. That's one of the magic pieces. I don't get that with everybody I relate to. And that doesn't make those relationships less valuable.
Right.
They're just different.
Yep.
I just heard somebody recently talk about how they were partnered for about a decade, and they met somebody new. They were polyamorous, so they met somebody new and they started a relationship. And what happened? They fell in love, or what they termed, they fell in love really, really fast because they fell for somebody who was a high context communicator, and they'd been with a low context communicator for a long time, and they'd been thriving and doing all the low context things. And then, it was the way he described it was like a warm bath. Like,
Hmm.
oh, this person just gets me, like knows how to read the room. Okay, so that feels really good. But that didn't make him dislike all the other ways that his other partner was meeting his needs and communicating with him. So an appreciation for both of these styles is also really valuable.
Yeah.
Appreciating that they all have their place. Because you, as someone, a self-described high context communicator, I mean, I think one of the reasons you were attracted to my way of relating was that I spelled everything out for you.
Yep.
If I had a request for you, I was going to ask it. And I wasn't afraid to write things down or
Hmm.
to rely on lists and timers and tools. And
It was
it
awesome.
seemed like it was very comforting for
It
you
was.
to not have to just figure it out
Well,
all the
as
time.
I said, I was raised that way, but I was never very good at it. But I felt this constant pressure to keep getting better. And then you're like, you know what? What if I just tell you all the things? That's amazing.
And I I think that this is one of the ways that we start to re-understand our partner, but also
Hmm.
we can join each other in the playful
Mm.
healing of our child parts, the parts of us
Yeah.
that didn't grow up yet, the parts of us, or the parts of us that just got missed. I mean, you also taught me how to do algebra when I was an adult because I just never got it. I just never got it. And then you taught me how to do algebra, and that was incredibly soothing to the part of me that felt like a failure when she was a
Mm.
teenager.
Hmm.
um, I remember helping you figure out how to like engage with me by giving you these, like, I'm going to tell you, things like, please don't touch my hair this way. Like, don't drag your hands through my hair. I don't like that. But here you can, and I would take your hand and I would say, but you can touch my hair this way. And I would show you. And I could watch your shoulders just like slide down, like, okay. I think that there's something really healing in starting to understand that everybody's going to need some of both of this,
Yes.
and everybody's going to have different areas where they could use some nurturing through this.
So, um, so from a relationship point of view, from a relationship point of view, the more we can understand about um, what each other's default strategies are,
Yeah,
and um, what our I don't want to put too fine a point on this, but what each other's skills are.
yeah,
What are our strengths? We are not the same, so there's some differentiation to be done in
right,
here. Nope. And one of the reasons that early on I tried to be like you.
yeah,
I tried to pick up on the cues that you provided because I wanted to communicate the way you communicated. But I don't. I'm not you. And that's fine. In fact, it's better.
it's way better. I don't want to date a mirror.
Right.
That's not my goal. Um, So the thing about opening up relationships and high versus low context is
Mm.
as we shift the context. So especially for those of you who are in the first 3 to 5 years of your paradigm shift, as all the expectations are realigning, I can guarantee that people will need to like reacclimate to this over and over again, because most people go through a whole bunch of changes, and you'll experience times when you're like, oh, we're in sync, we're in tuned, we both do know what to expect right now, and oh, wait, hang on, things have shifted again.
Mhm.
We're understanding a new way that we want this to work or something. So creating security is also about allowing yourself to suck at this again for a while. Like
Right.
it's not
Hmm.
going to just be this steady increase of like, oh, I'm better and better at communicating. It's also, oh, I know how to be comfortable that this isn't working well. You and I
Yeah.
just went through a period of like 18 months of like, oh, this isn't as easy as
Yep.
it had been. Yep, it wasn't. And right now we're back in like another 3 months of like, oh, it's getting better and better. And yeah, we found each other. We've been practicing attuning, but not panicking during the
Yes.
time
Yep.
when, oh, we weren't hearing each other. Neither the high nor low context communication was going the way we expected it to, but we didn't panic, and we carried on with, okay, let's keep using the strategies we have to repair and to come back into attunement. But when you're in that first 3 to 5 years, especially, a lot of the work of figuring out what exactly are you doing? What is your relationship paradigm? What are your values? How are you going to live those values? It's going to be about getting explicit with yourself and explicit with
Yeah.
the people you're partnering with. And
Mhm.
then there's the people you're in established partnerships with, and then the new people that you're partnering with they're going to have their own ways of communicating or not. And
Yeah.
so I find that like my default answer is be more explicit. Bring more and more stuff from the implicit category into the explicit. And that doesn't negate the need to also practice attunement, the ability
Yep.
to emotionally attune, the ability to be present with someone and feel what they're feeling.
Mhm.
And if you struggle with reading nonverbal cues, then naming that, sharing that, like
Right. Be
I had to
explicit
figure
about
that
those things.
out
Mhm.
about you because you didn't know it about yourself, so you didn't know how to
Right.
tell me.
Mhm.
But helping other people understand you is a big part of this, and that's another way of being explicit. Um, but I also have noticed how much like you have learned to attune to me over the years, more and more and more. It's been a slower process. Like I would
Mhm.
say, the way that I learned to like emotionally and physically attune to you was over the course of the first couple years. I achieved a really high level
Yep.
of like, yep, I know you, I get you, I can read you. You achieved a very high level, but over about a decade. It
Right.
took longer. And that doesn't make you better or worse at it even. It's like your pacing is literally slower,
Mhm.
but you've also like, wow, wow, you're really good at it now.
Oh,
You're
thanks.
really, really good. And I'm grateful that I held steady to the idea that the explicit was good, was healthy, that it didn't mean that you didn't love me just because you needed me to spell things out for you. I'm glad I stayed present to that. Um, because we can get into a bit of a snarl if we convince ourselves that if they really love me, they'll just know. They'll just
Yeah.
know how to love me.
Mhm.
Um, I I love telling people how I like to be loved. They don't have to provide that. That's
Yep.
true. But yeah, of course I can tell people this is how I receive love. Would you meet me there? Would you engage with me this way? Um that's not force, that's inviting
It's an
someone
invitation,
into
exactly. Mhm.
loving you and communicating with you.
And
So,
so and the one of the things that I still trip over, having started with a default high context communication style, is I forget to make things explicit. I I work best. I have worked best with lots of explicit communication pointed at me,
mhm.
explicit statements and things pointed out to me very clearly, my handheld, and shown exactly what to do. Um, but I haven't offered that back. And you said that I have gotten better at the high context. That's fantastic. I've also gotten better at the low context,
Thank
at
God.
remembering to
I think
say
I'd have
all the
died.
things. Yeah. And but I still trip over it. I still just plain old forget
Yeah,
that
so
I could say a thing now.
you've gotten better at doing the low context stuff that I have asked for. You make written agreements with me. You actually check in, and we do really great relationship check-ins and really solid connection amplifying processes that are all about like using the words. But we do have plenty of times when we're going along and you do something and I'm like, what the heck just happened? And
Uh-huh.
you're like, I did exactly what I said I was going to do. I'm like, literally no words came out of your mouth.
Right.
Sometimes you say a sentence to yourself in your head and you never actually say it out loud. And knowing that about you is one of the ways that I can love you as you are, and asking you to please practice saying those words out loud so I understand why we are no longer on the highway and we appear to be driving to the middle of the farm nowhere. I like really does make a difference to my sense of safety as well. So this is a dance and we're all dancing it. And so one of the things we can do is everybody can go have a meta conversation now
Yes.
about how do we communicate. This
Okay.
episode is a jumping off point for
Yep.
how do we communicate and how are the ways that we tend to use these strategies, how are they working for us and how are they not working for us?
And you just brought up a really important word, safety. So
Yeah.
I've been thinking in this whole conversation thus far, I've been thinking about, achieving good communication of understanding each other. And that's all, that's all true. And then there's the sense of safety that we feel in one or the other of these styles.
Yeah.
Like
Yep.
I might feel really safe if you figure out what I'm trying to do without me telling you. That
Yeah.
might give me an embodied feeling of safety. Or I might feel safety when you say explicitly exactly what's going on for you.
Yep.
So my point here isn't to point at one or the other of these styles. Again, it's a model,
But
right?
understanding yourself.
But understanding yourself and understanding your partners. What do they like? What not like? What makes them feel safe or unsafe around these types of communication?
Yeah.
So there's a whole other way that you can have a meta conversation about this, which is um, how dysregulating is it for you when I just turn off the highway without saying anything? You
Yeah.
know, a
So
lot,
having
or no,
and
or maybe not. Maybe you're like, no, this
or
is
maybe
fine.
not. No, this is okay. Yeah, it's okay.
Yep.
Oh, surprise, plot twist in the middle of
Hmm.
our trip. I One of the places I see people struggle with this, I want to before we close give an example is around special events, right?
Mm.
So if one partner, so say um, Ken is a high context communicator, if we have an anniversary coming up and you assume that
Mm.
I know that anniversaries are special based on our past and based on hints and if you just assume that I know that and you start booking a restaurant and doing little things without ever saying anything, but you start just preparing for a celebration, expecting me to pick up on that. And if I at the same time am thinking, honestly, I don't really do celebrations unless somebody asks. I'm not a celebration special event kind of person. So um and I want direct communication. So if I just ask you, like say our anniversary is coming up, do you want to celebrate it? This birthday's coming up. Like, do you want to? If I do that and that in itself may make you feel bad, right? Like me
Yep.
asking you might make you feel bad. Like, of course, but also I might feel frustrated. Like, wait, I don't want you to be just like expecting and planning, right? So this is just a tiny example of how we can just miss each
Yeah, we
other.
can miss. Yeah.
Nobody's doing anything wrong, but we miss each other. So having the meta conversation about what we can each do, right? There's ground for each person. One person can agree to be more explicit about plans. One person can be more attentive to hints or also just to tracking the history. Like we've had
Yeah.
these conversations. Pay attention. Yeah, if I want my our history to also inform our future. There's always more to do around the meta communication.
Yeah.
And also, this can be really, really satisfying because it can reveal where, oh my gosh, we have been living out the same pattern over and over again. How many horrible Christmases did we have, you and I together, before we finally had a conversation about the communication that like really needed to happen?
Yeah.
I think we got to our sixth Christmas
Yeah.
before, like,
It was.
we finally did it.
Yeah.
Have
Yep.
conversations about this when you're in a cool state. So we needed to have a conversation. I'm not even kidding about Christmas in March. We were on a 10-mile walk, and I was like mentally walking through the year, and I was like, oh, and then I got to Christmas, and I was like, oh, we need to have this conversation. We spent the whole rest of the walk talking about how we handle Christmas and how I experience it and you do and
Yeah.
how it's different. And in there in March, when you could feel all this hope about like, yeah, of course I could handle this differently. And I could feel hope about we have all this
Mhm.
time to plan and change. My point being, have your conversations about meta communication when you are in a cool state and when there is actually time to make
Yep.
some shift, not the night before. Okay.
And I could have a whole other, I think we could have a whole other episode just on the tools that I have decided to use to improve my communication.
I think, okay, plan it. I think
Yep, I'm going to
there are
plan that
lots
one.
and lots of listeners who say, I listen to the podcast because I hear you, and I very clearly know that I am Ken. I am the Ken in this relationship.
Yeah.
And relational things have been harder for you
Mhm.
in many, many ways. And but you are a fantastic person to be in a relationship with because you have put in the effort to learn what tools you need to do this really well. So you are just absolutely outstanding in
Well,
relationship.
oh my God.
But
Thank you.
but not because it just came easily or
Oh, nope.
naturally.
Nope.
So
Actually, I only really started getting good at being in a relationship when I stopped trying to just do it myself with the tools I was born with. It's when I started to use what other people had given me, what was around me. So yeah, whole other episode on that.
okay, I'm counting on you to plan it, and
I
that's an
will do that.
explicit ask.
Okay, I hear that.
Thanks, babe.
Thank you.
There's no one right way to design your relationship. And lots of people, actually about 25%, according to a recent national survey, are interested in some type of open relationship. But how do you know if you are ready to open up happily? Not everyone is, and that's no problem. I've got a 60-second quiz that will give you the answer. And even better, you'll walk away with your next step, whether you're good to go or not so much when it comes to opening up. And this is no BuzzFeed nonsense. I personally designed this quiz from my years of academic research. Go to joliquiz.com. That's JOLIQUIZ.com and find out if you're ready to open up happily and what to do if you are or if you're not.